This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. It is the morning after Devin Haney's unanimous decision victory against JoJo Diaz. Delighted to be joined by trainer Ben Davison, who was a part of that team. Ben, firstly, congratulations on a successful night at the office. How would you assess Devin's performance?
Yeah, it was a good victory. JoJo's another former world champion. Devin getting a victory over, and I felt like it was probably a career best performance as well from JoJo. He really came to win, showed a lot of grit, toughness, and he said before the fight that he is a dog, and I said in the fighter's meeting, I give him that, he is a dog before the fight, and he showed that again last night.
What was the game plan heading into the fight for you guys? It seemed like Devin held his feet maybe a little bit more than what most were expecting to see from him and what we've seen in previous bouts.
Yeah, it was important that Devin didn't get pushed around the ring. Give JoJo momentum, typical of a pressure fighter. So that was something that we was looking to take away from JoJo, the momentum, and to bring JoJo into the shots, use his pressure against him, keep chipping away at the body, and gradually break him down.
What would be your criticisms of Devin's performance last night? I think one thing which people kind of took away with it, he got caught more than what people would have expected to see from him, and there were some questions. If it was more of an established natural lightweight, he might have had a few more questions to answer.
I don't think you get many more bigger punches than Linares in the lightweight division, and we saw how that fight went. That was a good win for Devin. So people's always gonna have questions of this and questions of that, and always going to look at the negatives. Not every fight's going to be you don't get hit, You go swimming, you're going to get wet. But he took the shots well, fired back well. People complained that, he's a boring fighter, he's in an entertaining fight, now it's this. So there's always going to be criticisms. However, before the fight, there was a lot of people picking JoJo. A lot of people that thought that JoJo was going to win. So I suppose it's down to opinions as to whether it was a career best win for Devin. Wouldn't say it was a career best performance, in my opinion, but a solid performance and a solid victory. And again, it cements his resume. It's the best resume at the moment of this year by any of the lightweights, but by far.
Was his performance better last night than what it was against Linares?
No, I think that the Linares fight for 9 3/4 rounds was almost as good as you're going to get. That was a phenomenal performance against a quality fighter. But there's always things to work on, and I think that for whatever reason it was, to be honest with you, that there was, he literally had about 7 to 8 minutes to get ready. By the time he was wrapped up, gloves on, he had about 7-8 minutes to get ready. Usually, for Linares in the change room, we had time to go through all the situations, all the scenarios, go through the game plan, just rerun through things literally before he stepped in the ring. Last night it was a little bit rushed, so there's areas there to work on. It's not making excuses because it was a good win. It's a good win, Like I said, a lot of people was picking JoJo there and said that it was potentially the toughest fight of Devin's career. And so, people make excuses when they have a loss. This is a it's a good win. So I'm not making excuses, but I'm just giving you an honest opinion on areas that I feel like we could have worked on. And I think that in the corner maybe we could have things a little bit more smoother. But that's something that me, Bill, Devin, we discussed already. Had a little debrief there last night. That's not against anybody. That's myself, Bill, and everybody in the corner, just to have it running a little bit smoother. But it's still a new relationship. To work out, the smoothest way to get the information across to Devin. But when you take it all into consideration, it's a good victory. Very often when you've got a huge mega fight looming, it's difficult to, your mind, as much as you want to focus on JoJo, how much talk has there been about Kambosos and Devin this week? And that is always playing in the back of the fighter's mind. So often when you've got a huge fight like that looming, there is a little bit of, your mind's on that as well, and it adds a little bit of pressure as well. So, yeah, overall, good performance. Areas to work on for sure. But that's what I love about Devin as well, because I knew instantly, obviously we knew that he'd won well and quite wide, but I knew that in himself he probably wasn't quite the happiest. But that's how you've got to be. That's how you get better. That's what any great has. Even fantastic performances, there's that little bit of, because you're a perfectionist, and that's what we'll get to. We've not even scratched the surface on what that young man is capable of doing. And yeah, when we get everything's right and everything's when everything's all said and done, if Devin keeps that mentality and we as the team can guide him right, there's no doubt in my mind that he has the potential to be a pound for pound number one.
We spoke about it earlier, Rick. I asked you a question, what's the dynamic like between yourself, Bill, and Mickey Bay? Obviously working together in the corner last night, how would you assess it now, the first time all three of you in the corner together with Devin?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit smoother in the Linares fight. But as I say, Bill mentioned it to me. He said, look, I think that we need to get the information and be a little bit smoother in the corner with Devin. I 100% agreed. Like I say, we had a debrief with Devin last night up in the room, just talking about it. But, it's good that we're aware of that. It's good that we're aware of that, because it's our job to give Devin the information to make the adjustments throughout the fight. So for us to get the information across to him, we have to take part blame if we feel like certain adjustments weren't made. If we did we get the, we have to look at ourselves. The same as we're looking at the fighter and saying, oh, Devin maybe could have done this a little bit better. Devin maybe could have done that a little bit better. We have to look at ourselves as well to say, maybe we could have got the information across a little bit better. Maybe we could have been a little bit smoother in this area. And that goes for the same through the training camp. Maybe we could have focused a little bit more on this. Maybe we could have focused a little bit more on that. That's why it's a team effort. Devin's the fighter, gets in there and gets the win, and all the credit has to go to him. But also the coaching staff, we have to look at ourselves as well to say, what areas can we improve on? Obviously Lee as well, Lee Wiley working with us as well. So it's definitely an area. I think it was smoother in the Linares fight. It's not criticism of anybody at all, but it's just an honest opinion. And as we're sitting here saying, oh, you're asking me, oh, what could Devin have done a little bit better? I think that we could have maybe got some of the information across a little bit smoother to make it easier for him to make the adjustments, get the information across to him a little bit smoother. But like I said, it's still something that's new, and the fact that we're aware of that means that we'll get it right.
Ben, I was trying to get your thoughts on the final round itself. Obviously, I think you'd do well to find anybody who didn't have Devin well up at that point, but what was his thought process heading into that? Because it was a lot more, he got involved a lot more than what he probably needed to at that point in the fight.
Again, I think there's an element of everybody wanting, whatever a fighter does, it's not just Devin, whatever a fighter does, if Devin circled round the ring, walked off, little feint, picked him off with a jab, stepped round him, little feint, and closed the show in boring fashion, people would have gone, boring, ran for the last round. He stood there and punched it out with JoJo, and now it's, he got involved too much. So I think there's a little bit of that where Devin wants to show, look, I can mix it and I'm willing to mix it. But there's a time and a place, and like I say, it's all areas to work on, to look back, reflect on, and this is part of the process. This is part of the process. Decision making. Devin look back and go, I've shown that I'm willing to do that. Next time I don't need to do that because I've shown that. Or maybe if I'm going to do it, oh look, here's a better moment to let your hands go, etc., etc. So no fight is ever perfect. No fight is ever perfect. So me and Lee, obviously, not critical is not the right word, but it's our job to look at every little. See, it can come across if a fighter's not willing to be critiqued, we're not right for them. We're not right for them, but Devin is willing to be critiqued. He wants to be critiqued. He wants to know. First thing he said, "Oh, can you speak to Lee and we get a breakdown of the fight so that I can have a look back and see where I went right, see where I went wrong." Like I said before earlier in this interview, that is the mindset you have to be a great.
Ben, you haven't had a full camp with Devin yet. Let's say if it is Kambosos next, or whoever it may be next, do you feel that's an important next step, that you can actually spend more time with him, say 8 to 10 weeks with him, as opposed to just for 4 or 5 that you've had this time around in Linares?
Again, it's definitely an area that we need to look at. It's a discussion that we've already had. So yeah, like I said, it's all about progression, and at this level, that's how it needs to be. But yeah, it's a discussion that's already had. Obviously, we don't know time frames and etc. at the moment with that fight. But yeah, it's definitely an area that we've got planned to have discussions about.
Just a couple more from me, Ben. Firstly, you mentioned Devin has the potential to be a pound-for-pound great. Eddie's compared him to Floyd. DAZN put a graphic up in the week making a comparison between Devin and Floyd. Can you see any sort of form of similarities between the pair of them?
I felt like the performance was quite similar to the Chop Chop performance when Floyd boxed Chop Chop Cooley. Got clipped with a few shots that maybe shouldn't have got clipped with, but again, it's all part of the progression. People only see and only remember, oh, Floyd's great moments, his great victories. That was a good win against Chop Chop, of course, but there was moments there. Same when he boxed Abjuda early on in the fight. No fight is perfect, but you have to make the judgment when it's all said and done. And like I said, we haven't even scratched the surface with Devin, and he's able to do what he's doing without, he's 23 years old, literally just turned 23 years old, and there's like his ceiling of potential is ridiculous, and if we get it right, he will be a pound-for-pound number one.
George Kambosos, obviously he was in the building last night. Are you confident yourself as part of the team that we will see George and Devin face off next? And if so, stylistically, what would you expect to see from a pair of them in the ring?
Do you know what it is? Like, I understand it, that promoters and Kambosos, and they've got to try and sell themselves to get the best deal out there, but the whole goal is to have one champion. That's what every fan goes on about, one champion, and we want to know who it is, and there's too many belts and all of this. Well, we've got an opportunity here to get an undisputed, one champion. We saw it with Joshua and Tyson, where, oh right, they get through these 2 fights and then we're gonna get it. Well, that didn't work out. So there's no point putting that fight at risk. How many chances for the fighters themselves? How many times is George Kambosos? How many times is Devin going to get an opportunity to become undisputed? It's a difficult thing to have. Crawford and Spence have been trying to do this for how long? The opportunities arose now, and when opportunities like this come, you have to take it with both hands, and that's for both guys. So I think it would be absolutely crazy if we don't get that fight next, and I think it would be, if that fight doesn't happen for whatever reason, it would be something that both fighters will regret later on in their careers.
Ben, you've got Mark next week, you've got Lee the week after, provided both come through their bouts. How would you reflect on a personal note on your own 2021?
Yeah, it's been it's been a solid year. What have we had? How did it start? Leewood British title was the first one, wasn't it? Leewood British title, Lee McGregor European title, Josh Undisputed, Devin Linares, Leewood World title, Lee McGregor European title defence, Mark's debut, Will's debut, Shabazz in a step-up fight, Devin here, and then, like you say, Lee and Mark to close the show for the end of the year.
Right, Ben. I imagine this will probably be the last time that I see you this year. So good luck with the coming weeks. Safe travels back to the UK, and I appreciate the time you've afforded me throughout 2021. Enjoy the Christmas period and the New Year, and I look forward to catching up with you next. Thank you for speaking to me on Boxing Social.
And you, thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate.